We had the kind of marriage people envied. 7 years together, a beautiful house in the suburbs, 2 kids who actually liked us. I'm a cybersecurity architect. I build systems that protect networks, data, and digital infrastructure for Fortune 500 companies. My wife, Elena, was a corporate wellness consultant. Not yoga. She ran executive wellness programs, stress management seminars, meditation retreats for C-suite clients. She had this way of making boardrooms feel like sanctuaries. We met at a conference. I was there speaking about data privacy. She was running a wellness breakout session. We grabbed coffee afterward, and she asked me why I looked so stressed at a security talk about security. I told her I spent my life thinking about threats that don't exist yet. She said maybe I needed to exist more in the present. I married her anyway. Our weekends were solid. Farmers market runs, family time, dinner parties where Elena would facilitate these incredible conversations with our friends. She'd talk about presence and intention. I'd listen and think, this is what balanced looks like. My friends would ask how I managed to land her. I'd laugh and say I outsourced my emotional intelligence. Our sex life was consistent, connected, the kind of intimacy that comes from knowing someone completely. Or so I thought.
The first crack. 4 months ago, Elena started working with a new corporate client, a biotech startup called Nexus Biotech. She mentioned the CEO casually at first. The CEO is so refreshing, actually cares about employee burnout. Then it became more frequent. David thinks wellness programs should be integrated into quarterly reviews. David wants to overhaul the entire employee experience. David invited me to consult on their Series B fundraising strategy. His name was David Chen. I'm a cybersecurity guy. I notice patterns. I notice when someone's name starts appearing in conversations with increasing frequency, when they switch from professional context to personal anecdotes, when the phone behavior changes. Elena started taking calls in the other room. She'd say it was client confidentiality. She started dressing differently for Nexus meetings, more corporate, more polished. She'd mentioned David had introduced her to investors, that he was considering her for a board position, that he valued her expertise in ways her previous clients didn't. I told myself I wasn't the jealous type. I trusted her, but I also understood human behavior, and this behavior was following a very specific pattern. Then she told me she needed to travel. David wanted her to lead a full-day wellness retreat for their executive team at an off-site resort. 3 days. She'd be gone midweek. Something in me shifted.
The professional discovery. Here's where my job became complicated. 3 months earlier, Elena had asked me to set up a family network security system at home. Nothing unusual. Lots of people ask. I built a comprehensive home network. Encrypted Wi-Fi, device tracking for the kids, automated backups, standard stuff. But I also built something else. An automated daily network log that tracks device connections, timestamps, and data usage patterns. Completely transparent. I told her about it. She didn't really understand what I was explaining, so she nodded and moved on. The logs were there in my system. I could see them anytime. I could see that Elena's phone was connecting to the same hotel network every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. The same hotel, the Meridian Resort, downtown. For the past 3 months, every single Tuesday and Thursday, 4-hour blocks, like clockwork. I could see her laptop connecting to a personal VPN during those times, attempting to mask her location data. I could see text message metadata showing conversations happening at 11 p.m., 2 a.m., 4 a.m. on nights when I was traveling for work. And here's the thing about being a cybersecurity architect. I understood exactly what this data meant. I understood the pattern, I understood the timeline, and I understood that I could prove it. But I didn't just pull up logs. I pulled up everything.
The investigation. I did something I'm not proud of. I leveraged my professional skills to understand what was happening. I installed a keystroke monitor on the shared laptop, the one Elena used when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Nothing illegal. Technically owned by both of us. I could see her emails. Not all of them, but enough. Emails to David about feeling understood and not being able to stop thinking about you, and what we're doing is worth the risk. I checked her cloud backups, photos, a series of them, her and David at the resort, his arm around her, her smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at me in years. I pulled her credit card statements, the Meridian Resort, restaurants near his office, a boutique hotel upstate where they'd gone for an overnight trip while telling me she was at a client conference. I traced his digital footprint too. David Chen, CEO of Nexus Biotech, married, wife was a venture capitalist, they had a prenup, I found that through public records, interesting detail. I compiled everything into a secure file, not to use against Elena yet, to understand the full landscape first. Then I did something very deliberate.
The setup. David Chen, for all his startup success, wasn't very good at operational security. His passwords were weak, his email wasn't using two-factor authentication, his company's security was built on assumptions, not actual protections. I could have accessed his accounts. I didn't. Instead, I did something smarter. I reached out to a contact of mine, an investigative journalist I'd worked with on a data privacy story 6 months earlier. I told her I had a tip about Nexus Biotech, that the CEO was conducting an affair on company time using company resources and had some questionable practices around expense reporting. She was interested. I sent her David's name and the dates. I let her do the investigation. I didn't feed her information, I just gave her direction. She called me back 3 weeks later. She'd found something bigger. David had been submitting false expense reports. He was using company funds for his hotels, his meals, his trips. Thousands of dollars. The board of directors had no idea. His wife had no idea. She was planning to publish a story. I asked her to hold off for 2 weeks. She asked why. I told her I needed time to handle some personal logistics first. She agreed. She'd been sitting on the story for weeks anyway. Then I made a phone call to David's wife. I didn't identify myself. I just sent her a folder, anonymously. Hotel receipts, photos, credit card statements, emails. All publicly available information or information from public records. Nothing private, nothing obtained illegally. Then I called my lawyer and started the divorce paperwork. But I told him not to file yet. I told him I wanted to wait.
The unraveling. The dominoes started falling with beautiful, terrible precision. David's wife hired a divorce attorney, an aggressive one. She demanded an audit of Nexus Biotech's finances as part of their asset division process. Suddenly, the false expense reports came to light. Internal investigation, board discussion, SEC inquiry. The journalist published her story. CEO faces financial investigation, questions raised about governance and oversight. David's life started to implode. His marriage was ending. His company was under scrutiny. His professional reputation was collapsing. News outlets started digging deeper. Elena had no idea any of this was connected to me. She came home one evening looking shell-shocked. David had texted her. He was distancing himself. He said his wife knew. His company was under investigation. He couldn't be associated with anything that looked like impropriety right now. He said he was sorry. It had been incredible, but it had to stop. Elena was devastated. She locked herself in the bathroom and cried. I played the concerned husband, but I didn't confess. I let her spiral. The next day, David's wife showed up at Elena's office, not to confront her, but to warn her. She explained that David had been conducting an affair and that his company was under investigation. She suggested Elena might want to distance herself professionally before she got caught in the fallout. Elena quit Nexus Biotech the next day.
The consequence came from somewhere unexpected. The Meridian Resort, it turned out, was in the middle of a lawsuit. A housekeeping employee had been injured. The hotel was being investigated for labor violations, and they were desperate to settle lawsuits before going under. When the investigative journalist's story about David's expense reports came out, and specifically mentioned the Meridian Resort, questions started being asked. How many executives were booking rooms there? For how long? Were there patterns? The journalist, smelling a bigger story, started investigating hotel practices. She discovered that the Meridian had been systematically overlooking improprieties, affairs, money laundering, corporate fraud in exchange for volume from high-net-worth clients. The story exploded. The hotel faced regulatory action, multiple executives ended up in the news, and Elena's name appeared in one of the follow-up pieces, not as a villain, but as someone who'd been part of a pattern that the hotel had facilitated. Within weeks, her reputation in the corporate wellness space was damaged. Clients started canceling. She'd been associated with David. She'd been part of the hotel's ecosystem. She was now entangled in a story about corporate fraud and overlooked misconduct. Her business collapsed in real time.
The final leverage. 2 months into the divorce proceedings, I had Elena in a position I'd carefully constructed. Her professional reputation was in tatters. Her business had effectively ended. She was about to be a single mother with dramatically reduced income. And here's where the real leverage came in. I'd protected our assets long before this started. Not illegally, but intelligently. Most of our liquid assets were in investments I managed professionally. The house was in a trust structure designed specifically for professional asset protection. Not unusual for someone in my field, completely legal. Elena would get spousal support. Child support is legally mandated, but she wasn't going to get half of everything like she might have assumed. She was going to rebuild from essentially nothing. But I didn't just leave it there. I hired a family law attorney who suggested something else. I could file for full custody based on the instability Elena had just created. Not by exposing the affair in court, that would be messy and public, but by establishing that Elena's recent business collapse, the questions about her professional judgment, and the instability in her life made me the more stable primary parent. Elena panicked. She realized what was happening. She'd destroyed her career, she was about to lose custody of her kids, and she was about to lose financial security. That's when I agreed to settle. She'd get reasonable visitation, spousal support for a defined period, child support as mandated. She'd keep one asset, a small investment account worth about $80,000, enough to rebuild, but not enough to erase what she'd lost.
The twist she didn't see coming. Here's what Elena didn't realize until much later. David's wife wasn't just divorcing him. She was also suing him for fraud, the false expense reports, the hidden funds, the asset concealment. She had discovered that David had been moving money into offshore accounts that appeared to be for investment purposes, but were actually designed to hide assets from marital discovery. When the SEC got involved in the company investigation, they froze those accounts. David ended up facing not just civil liability, but potential criminal charges. His wife walked away with substantially more than half their assets because the fraud uncovered during divorce proceedings made the prenup unenforceable. She'd been brilliant about it. And David? He was destroyed. His company, his marriage, his freedom, all compromised. Elena realized too late that she'd gotten involved with someone who was actively committing fraud. She'd been sleeping with a man who was defrauding his own company, his wife, and his investors.
The conversation. 8 months after the divorce was finalized, Elena asked to meet. Really meet. Not negotiation, not through lawyers, just us, sitting in a coffee shop on a Saturday afternoon while the kids were at soccer practice. She looked different, smaller somehow. She'd aged in ways I didn't expect. She asked me how I knew, how I'd figured everything out so quickly, how I'd managed to make his entire world collapse so methodically. I told her part of the truth, that I'd noticed patterns in network usage, that I'd reached out to a journalist contact with a tip, that I'd informed his wife of publicly available information, that I'd let systems do what systems do when exposed to scrutiny. You planned this, she said, not a question. I responded to what you did, I corrected her. Everything else was just consequences following their natural course. She asked if I regretted it,
if I felt bad about what happened to her. I told her the honest answer. I regretted that our marriage ended. I regretted that our kids experienced this. I regretted that she'd made choices that led here. But I didn't regret protecting myself, protecting our children, or refusing to be collateral damage in someone else's deception. You destroyed me, she said quietly. No, I said. You destroyed us. I just didn't let you take everything when you did, and I didn't let the people you were deceiving stay in the dark.
The aftermath. That was 7 months ago. I have the kids 3 days a week, plus shared custody of holidays. Elena has them the remaining 4 days, which she's figured out how to make work. She's rebuilt her wellness business from scratch. Smaller, but legitimate. She's working with a therapist. She seems to be finding some peace in being smaller, in being more real. David is facing trial. His company was sold at a fraction of its valuation. His wife is officially over. His wife is now running her own venture capital fund with capital she leveraged from the settlement. I follow her on LinkedIn. She's doing incredible work. But here's what I actually learned through all of this. And this is the part that matters. I didn't need revenge. Not really. David and Elena did plenty of damage all on their own. What I did was understand systems. I understood that when you expose fraud to the right people, systems respond. When you provide information to journalists, truth finds its way out. When you understand how networks work, you understand how information flows. And that's romantic intelligence. It's not about being ruthless or manipulative. It's about recognizing that love isn't blind, it's informed. It's about understanding that trust isn't about being naive. It's about having the clarity to see patterns, the courage to act on what you see, and the wisdom to let consequences do their own work. I didn't destroy anyone. I just refused to be destroyed. The kids are doing okay. I'm doing better than okay. And Elena? She's learning what it means to live with actual consequences for actual choices. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's clarity. It's preparation. It's understanding that the people who truly betray you will often destroy themselves. You just have to make sure you're not going down with them.